Hey guys, welcome to my review of Final Fantasy XVI. So I'll be honest, I'm not someone who has a ton of nostalgia for the Final Fantasy games. I played the original Final Fantasy VII for the first time a few years ago, and I really loved it. I was actually really surprised how a game with the most dated graphics ever could leave such an impression on me, which really is a testament to how amazing these games are at telling stories. I would even go as far as to say it's one of my favorite stories I've ever experienced from a game. And I don't say that lightly because my favorite genre to play are story-heavy JRPGs. I then played Final Fantasy XV shortly after, and it definitely wasn't my cup of tea. I think there were some really strong elements, like the friendships between your party members and how essential that is to the overall game. But other than that, 15 felt like it was having a bit of an identity crisis. As far as I know, this was Final Fantasy's first attempt at a less linear and more open world kind of experience, which I honestly don't think clashed very well, and it's pretty obvious with how all over the place the narrative was, which is an area that Final Fantasy thrives in. So while I respect the attempt to branch out and try something new, I wasn't a big fan personally. So yeah, that's about the extent of my journey leading up to Final Fantasy XVI, but I decided to take a swing at this new game completely blind because I just had a good feeling about it. And oh my gosh, was I right to have that feeling, because this game absolutely destroyed my expectations. Going in, I hadn't seen any trailers or anything like that, so I didn't even know that it was a return to the linear story stuff, but I am so glad that it is, because so far I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Just a warning, I will be spoiling a lot of the early hours of Final Fantasy XVI in this review, but nothing after the intro sequence or where the demo ends, so if you aren't that far in yet, I recommend coming back to this video later, because it's definitely something worth seeing with your own eyes. So Final Fantasy XVI's story is very inspired by Game of Thrones, and by very, I mean almost too inspired. When I first saw the main character Clive, I thought, hey, this guy kinda reminds me of Jon Snow. He's got long dark hair and is brooding all the time. He's got a wolf companion that he raised since it was a pup and now it fights by his side. He's a child of a highborn family with a really supportive father, but a mother who hates him because of his legacy. Eventually, he finds himself in a group of outlawed men forced to protect the Empire, and he's driven to revenge by the murder of his brother and father. He even has a character-defining moment where, while everyone celebrates a feast, he sits outside and talks to a short guy about his purpose in the world. I mean, it's crazy. He's literally Jon Snow, and honestly, it might be a bit too far. Regardless though, I think the story is able to stand on its own easily because of its incredible world building and magic system. With all of the Game of Thrones style politics and factions and characters, it can get really hard to keep track of everything. There's a new feature called Active Time Lore, which lets you pause a cutscene at any time, and it'll automatically give you some information on the characters, locations, and events that are happening in that scene. And it's honestly such a helpful tool to have, especially for a game as dense as this. I'm someone who jumps between games constantly. I'm currently playing through Tears of the Kingdom and the new Street Fighter, so having a feature that allows me to take a break from the story and return with all the information I forgot, it really is very helpful, and I hope this becomes more of a staple in future story-driven games. I also feel like I should mention just how good this game looks. I mean, you can see it yourself. It's truly next level when it comes to graphics, but there are so many amazing looking set pieces, from the lush forests to the massive battles that happen in the sky. I'm not someone who usually focuses on stuff like this. I care a lot more about the gameplay and the story with Final Fantasy, but I think it would be a crime to not mention how much everything is heightened by the visuals in this game. By far my favorite part so far though is the combat system. This is probably my favorite 3D action RPG combat I've ever played. The controls are very simple compared to something like Elden Ring. You've got a melee attack, a ranged fire attack, a dash ability that sends you towards enemies, a standard dodge move, and a few special abilities you can equip. It's all very simple, but how you chain together these attacks makes things very interesting. Enemies are also really quick, and it isn't always easy to find openings, so dashing around and finding the perfect opportunity is so much fun. Especially for the boss battles, which are really incredible and probably the highlight of the entire game for me. Every single boss has unique attack patterns and abilities, which makes every battle feel like a kind of dance, where the first half is all about learning the flow of the fight, and then the second half is abusing their weaknesses. Kind of a side note, but I feel like the combat would have worked really well in The Witcher 3. It's the same kind of idea, but executed in a whole new way, which just shows you how far we've come with games like these. There's also an extreme amount of accessibility features for players who might need them. You can equip different items that will give you automatic healing or auto dodging and stuff like that, which I find very cool for people who need that extra boost or maybe don't want to put the time into the combat and just want to get to the story moments. The music in Final Fantasy 16 is exactly what you expect it to be because it's a Final Fantasy game and the music is always great. I will say though, when a series goes on this long, you usually see a drastic change in the music direction. For example, in Zelda, they've recently gone for more ambient sounding music instead of the classic catchy melodies from the old games, which is fine, but I personally find it kind of boring. Final Fantasy has always had a style to their music, and thankfully that hasn't changed because it's almost nostalgic listening to the soundtrack of this game. It still holds the same vibe from the 90s era of games, but just enhanced with modern technology. I don't know if that's relatable or made any sense at all, but let me know if you've noticed that too in modern games because I find it very interesting. Alright, so the Debbie Downer is coming out to play because as much as I've enjoyed my time with Final Fantasy 16, there is a part of this that really holds it back for me. I wouldn't say that Final Fantasy is particularly known for their side quests, but damn, these are rough. When you get used to the high quality of the cutscenes and the main storyline, there is a noticeable drop in quality when it comes to the side content. Not only is the dialogue and visuals very stiff, but this is the most fetch questy bullshit I have ever seen. Every single quest is like, go talk to this guy and grab something for me, or walk 10 feet to this guy, he wants to talk to you. It's literally MMO levels of side quest content. I'd even go as far as to say it's probably worse. I guess the only bright side is that it's side content, so it's really optional, and I do plan on probably skipping all of it, but it's also kind of disappointing because I thought we were past this point, man. I like doing a few side quests here and there for every game I play, but for this one, I've already decided to ignore them from now on, and I still feel pretty early in the game. It really is just mindless padding, and I will say the voice acting is exceptional in all aspects of Final Fantasy 16, but yeah, it's really not worth it. But aside from that, Final Fantasy 16 is a really good game, and if you're like me and you're planning on just focusing on the main plotline, you're not going to be disappointed. It'll take you right back to the good old days of the golden era of RPG games, and the combat will probably keep me coming back for a while. So what do you guys think of the game so far? What was your first Final Fantasy? I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy your day. I hope you enjoy your life, and good day to you. Bye-bye. Have a good one, guys.